Hello friends, in this video we are going to study how to insert a node in the linked list. In this particular case we'll see how to insert it at the beginning of the linked list. So in fact there are two sub cases here. The first case is the linked list is empty. For example, if our linked list is being pointed by a pointer first, so one case says the linked list is empty. In other case we have some nodes or few nodes in the linked list being pointed by first. So that's the other case. So the first is pointing to a node and here the first is null. So we'll have to take care of both these things while inserting at the beginning. So our insert function will accept the linked list in which the node is to be inserted, right, as well as the data to be inserted in that node, right, and it will return the address of the modified linked list to a calling function, maybe main or any other function. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll create a node, right? So we'll create a node, and that node may be pointed by a pointer, let's say P. We'll create a node, insert the data in that node, right? We'll set to null, right? Now if the case is first case, that is there is nothing inside linked list, so in that case simply our first will point where P is pointing, like this, right? In the other case here, if there are some nodes in the linked list, so in this case our P arrow next will point to first. That means we'll create this linked list. So this will be the first node now in the linked list, and first will no more point here, will bring first to P. So this will be the modified linked list. So we'll return address of the first node. Here also we'll return address of the first node. So our function insert beginning has to do this. So here is our function insert at the beginning. So let me write let me write the function here. So function insert will return address of the first node after inserting. So the return type has to be address of the node or a pointer. So insert at beginning, insert beg, and the parameter which it will accept is the linked list in which it has to insert, that is the first node of the linked list. So again struct node star P, and the value to be inserted in that new node. So these two things insert function will accept. Then the first thing which we'll do is we'll create a new node, and let's say for creating that new node I'll be using one more pointer, struct node star q. So I'll create a new node by using q is equal to struct node star malloc size of struct node. So this statement will create a new node. For example, q will point to that new node, and new node will be created. Then we'll insert data inside that new node. So by saying q arrow data is equal to x is the value to be inserted there. Then we'll set q next to null. Okay, So whether this is the case or this is the case, we'll have to create a new node, right? So if the case is this one, so first we'll point to this new node created. If this is the case, and we'll have point the q next, q arrow next to first, and then first to q. So I'll check whether this is the case or this is the case. So I can check it if, see, when the insert beginning will be called, the first address, see this linked list is, let's say, in main, and from main we have this call, first is equal to insert beg first comma, let's say 10. We want to insert 10 inside the linked list. So this might be the call from the main function. So we are passing the linked list and a number to be inserted. So this first insert beg will insert the node inside this linked list and return the address of the modified linked list. So this first address will be stored in P. That means inside this insert beg function, P will be pointing where first is pointing. If the first is pointing to null, so P will be pointing to null. If the first is pointing to some linked list, so that time P will also point to this linked list. If first is pointing here, P will point to null, and if first is pointing to node, P will also point to node. So that is because of this call. Okay, so now I'll check whether this P is null or P is pointing node, pointing to some node. If P is equal to null, that means the first case, right? In that case, I simply has to say P equal to Q, right? So I'll point P to Q. That's what I'll do. I'll simply point P pointer to Q. So I'll say P equal to P will get Q, because Q is the new node, so P will point to this node, and I'll simply return P, right? So this node's address will be returned, and that will be stored in first, right? Else what will I do? I will, else means the P is pointing to some node. In that case, I'll simply say, because this node will be now our first node, this node is going to be the first node of the linked list. So in that case, I'll have to simply set Q next to P, and P will be Q, and then return P. In else part, what will I write is Q next is equal to P. That means now we are going to make this first node of the linked list. This will be the first node of the linked list. So Q next will be pointing here. By this statement I can have this, and then I'll say P is equal to Q. So I'll bring this P now here, right, because this will be my first node of the linked list, and then I'll say return P, right? Okay, and that return P will is the address of the first node of the modified linked list, so that will give to this first, right? So thus we get the node inserted at the beginning of the linked list. So we'll continue our discussion on inserting a node in the linked list with other case, that is inserting at the end, in the next video. So thanks.